Welcome. Another Humpday Q&A.
Hello.
Another week.
Am I here?
Yes, you were here.
Okay.
I think you were here.
My microphone dropped out, and apparently my sound went to Randall for a minute.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, welcome. Another week. Do you know what? I was thinking just the other day, like how quick each week seems to go. Like every day seems to be Humpday Q&A right now. I don't know what's going on.
It does.
It's half a year. You know, we're halfway through 2023. What the hell's happened? Anyway. Right.
I'll be in the middle of coding something for work, and it's like Simon messages me, "You ready for Hump Day?" I'm like, "What do you mean it's Wednesday?"
Right. All right. Let's do the usual thing, and then we can get to bring our guests on and sort of get the show going.
All right. What are we doing?
Let's just say this right now. Get your questions in the chat with Q in front of them, and we'll get going through this.
All right.
Wait. Let's switch to it. There you go.
Alrighty. Be nice. Be respectful. Be constructive. We're not on Reddit. Don't post anything that's adult, rude, offensive. You know, this is common sense. Don't advertise or promote your business. We all know you need work. We don't need to be told again and again. And speaking of again and again, don't post the same question again and again. Every time we see it, it goes to the bottom of the list. If you were next, you go back to the bottom of the list. Harassment of any kind is not tolerated. You know, bigotry, incels, all that nonsense. If you get blocked and banned from here, we do ship your name around to Discord and a number of other places. So you might find that your logins don't work anywhere anymore. And have fun.
Definitely have fun. Have a good time. That is the plan. Let's do some introductions here briefly. My name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Leader, CTO of DevAngels London. And you can follow me on Twitter at DevAngels London. And Scott, yeah.
I am Scott Stahl. I am also a community leader, organizer GDG Cleveland. And when I am not hiding underneath Simon's stairs coding with him, I am coding with my company, Good Dog Apps.
That joke about Harry Potter and like under the stairs is just terrible. It's terrible. And we have a few guests with us. So Randall, welcome to the stage. Hey, Randall.
Hey, hi. Hey, good to see you all again. I'm Randall Schwartz. I am a Flutter Google developer expert from the beginning of their program. And that means I answer a lot of questions, a lot fewer questions on Reddit these days. But I answer questions all over the place for people in the community. And I also am a full-time Flutter developer. And for this show, I am the question magician, which means I am watching the live Yahoo chat. No, the live YouTube chat. Wrong Y. And watching for you to put Q: in front of your questions, and then I'll flag them for the rest of us to answer in sequence that they are asked. So that's my job here.
And we also have John. John, welcome to the stream.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yep. So John Wizzy, I've been around for a while. Been here doing the Flutter thing on the side for many years and handled the Flutter community. Not Discord.
Medium.
Yeah, it is Discord. Medium. Yeah, I hang out on Discord with Randall sometimes. I don't know. Occasionally, I pop in there. But
yep. John edits our Medium, and I think he's been around long enough that occasionally we mistake him for a piece of the furniture.
Yeah. No, good to be here.
Talking, I briefly, I think we normally, just for those guests that are new, we normally have a little natter here before we start to get the questions rolling in. So to start thinking about what you might want to ask the audience. So you mentioned Reddit, Randall, and it just occurred to me that something actually happened with Reddit. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Reddit decided to charge for their API the same as Twitter.
Oh,
an exorbitant amount too,
and a ridiculous amount of money, right? And one of the people that has been hit by this is the creator of Apollo. Now, I don't use Reddit that often, but Apollo is a third-party application. Use the API so you can read your Reddit posts and everything, and it is meant to be like far by the best like experience for reading Reddit posts out there altogether. Right, this is, and he posted just the other day that basically he was working with them to kind of negotiate and work out like a deal or something, right? So that he can continue operating the app. And he's been working with them for years. Like they've worked really closely with their developers, solving bugs in their API, all sorts to kind of obviously benefit his app and everything else. And since they've made this decision, it's basically negotiations fell apart with some ridiculous claims. And he's recorded every conversation that he's had with them. And he's in Canada, and you only need one party's consent, which is your own, right? So one half. So
as long as you're a participant, yeah.
Yeah, so he's completely allowed to do this, right? So he's got transcripts and things of everything that went past, and like it's just all gone to hell in a handbag. Anyway, so I wonder. So part and parcel of that was what did I see? There was Programming Humor is a Twitter bot that I follow, and it's great fun to see some memes based around Programming Humor, of course. But they just said they were stopping the service because it would scrape the Reddit Programming Humor thing and then push it through to Twitter. So anyone that was on Twitter could see it. So they just terminated it now because they can't maintain it, right? Yeah. So many of these things are just ridiculous. But anyway, I wanted to post this because I read this entire thing, and this is huge. So I don't expect everyone to read this. But I thought from an app developer's perspective, and I'll post it in the chat and the links there. From an app developer's perspective on this, it's quite interesting in terms of just what he's going through. And obviously he's been relying on a third-party API that's out of control, which is a lot of apps do this, right? And it's not unreasonable. But any day they could obviously be switched off and you'd be screwed essentially, right? But what he's gone through in that whole thing is quite interesting. So I do, from a commercial, there's actually going to be he's actually mentioned on there, there's actually going to be a protest day where people stop using like Reddit, a bunch of Redditors in protest over their service or something like that. I'm not quite sure the details. Again, don't use Reddit. So
that's already happened actually for the Flutter Reddit and a bunch of others. The 11th was basically the cutoff day for pretty much everybody.
There you go.
Yeah. So if they're protesting, they're done. Yeah.
So I think I just find it interesting from many perspectives, especially when he talks about like obviously from my point of view and my role, like he looks at the value of a customer and what they're worth, and he talks about the value to his customer base that uses Apollo, what value that has to Reddit as a whole based on their pro subscription model and various other things. And basically he worked out that it's basically they're charging him a 20x increase in what's reasonable to use the API. And his API, and he said he was using, I think it was like 300. I'm going to have to find this now. Their price model was, the price they gave was 24 cents per 1,000 API calls.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculously high. And for those that don't, I think he mentioned that actually how many API calls like per user.
What is Google Cloud, like 2/100ths of a cent?
Yeah, it's
something
really
like
cheap.
that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what he mentions on there, like his API, the API usage of his app, and it was ridiculously low anyway right now. Here we are. Another common claim of Reddit is that Apollo is inherently inefficient, using on average 345 requests per day per user. And while some other apps use 100, it depends on how, like I would say, how busy it is on average, right? But actually thinking about that, that's not, when you think like, oh, you read 10 posts, you favorite 10 posts, you need to mark 10 posts to read. So that's 30, right? You read 100 posts, now that's 300. That's, like what?
Oh, I'm just thinking there's a lot more calls than just a single call for a single thread, which is what you're talking about right now.
Sure. But I'm just saying that, like, let's say you read like a list of. I think one of my earbuds just went dead. This is good start. Do you know what? Maybe I'll take him out for the show. Hopefully, you don't get any feedback. Apologies if you do. Don't know what happened there. Can you hear me, guys?
I hear you.
Very loud.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear us?
Oh no! Why can't I hear Scott?
There we go.
Yeah, we can hear him.
Scott's just mumbling.
Scott,
he's just talking without talking.
No, I'm here.
Can you hear us, Randall?
Really? No, I hear him.
Yeah, I hear him.
I don't understand.
Hang on.
We
let's
have
see if I
all
can
this
fix
I
it.
would smash the
technology.
microphone, but we got a lot of people listening. Wrong
Everybody
way.
can hear him, but you, Simon.
Oh, you mean chat?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, right.
But no, I think one of the points Simon was building to is you look at a single Reddit thread, fine, there's one call for the text on the OP. How many comments are there?
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking like avatar fetching and stuff too.
Oh yeah, there's tons of
we
stuff.
talk about API calls.
Pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So
this
like
is
you
it,
pull
right?
up a thread, you get a bunch of user IDs. Now you
Yep.
got to call avatar calls for each one of those that you don't already have cached.
Which means
You
he
know.
was dealing with billing people who have no clue how the servers work.
Well, he actually mentions that it was quite interesting. He mentions that in the post. He literally answers in very good detail everyone's points of view on like things, and I just thought it was very interesting, just in general. Anyway, I won't sort of go on about it, but I just thought I'd bring it to everyone's attention. Once I started reading, I couldn't stop reading. Put it that way. It's quite long, but it's worth it. I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the amount of I think but this way, I think Reddit's really made a problem for themselves here. Not just in this particular use case, but in all of these things, right?
Yeah.
Like I know Twitter did what it did, but equally enough, like you have to have a realistic pricing model.
You know, they survived this long without charging for the API.
Right. But the thing, what I find really annoying about it is kind of what I thought about Twitter as well, is that those kind of applications, not just like a mobile application, I just mean the applications of their API is what's driven the interest in their platform.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So it's like Twitter wouldn't exist without the possibility of hooking into the API and using bots. Like it was the driving force behind a lot of stuff on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And then for them to do that, and for them to sort of do the pricing model, and then the same goes for this example of Reddit doing this now. It's like it's also community moderated. I mean, they're not even paying their moderators, right?
That, you know what? There you go. The moderators should start charging Reddit. And the people who run the subreddit should start charging for content.
Well, I mean, it kind of worries. It did worry me when Twitter did this. It kind of sets a bad precedent, and I feel like this is just going the wrong way right now with a lot of things.
Mm.
And it's argued that they're thinking about IPO, and in doing so, they've got to make their profit numbers a little more sane.
Yeah,
but you can't do it by squeezing on all your people that have gotten used to the free model that you're set up. You know, they're based on their own price points, based on the fact that it was already free. You can't just automatically say, well, now everybody, you know, pay 10 times as much. It's like you can't just raise the rent in your apartments and expect people not to move out.
It's also interesting that, you know, they've done this and publicly, and of course, you know, it's going to affect them in other ways. Like now it's great trying to shape your API, trying to shape look at your numbers for an IPO, but like seriously, that's just,
you know, I can't remember what the latest thing Musk did.
Money over this. Go on.
Musk did something else stupid recently that really angered a lot of people. I can't remember what it was because there's a long list. But between that and this, I think it's the right time to start pushing Mastodon again.
Right.
Because the whole thing's just going to drive people that way.
Speaking of which, we have a question about that in the chat.
Let's
start at the top. Then. Yeah, people have been waiting.
All right, that's the first question.
But you brought Mastodon up, so let's going to go with that.
Is it in the list? Is it in the list?
Matt wants to know elderberries, raspberries, or blackberries. I've
blueberries.
Got a suggestion that is not safe for children.
Blueberries.
So
it's obviously blueberries.
Yeah, definitely blueberries.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
moving along. Considering writing my own Dart package for a database client, libsql or libsql. Any advice on this? Best practices, where to start?
Well, I would suggest you look at the current database packages that are out there. So we've been talking about this. You obviously there's a MySQL package, Postgres package, and MySQL, Postgres, SQLite, and also ISAR, which is on the same sort of lines. All of these database packages that have very similar problem space of doing queries, getting result sets, that kind of thing. So they're good examples. Best practices. I mean, you've got. I think you need to understand like how it works. There is actually on Flutter.dev. There's a great page, and we kind of mention this all the time, but I'll dig it out. Which is the what's it called? Platform. Developing packages and plugins. That's always a good one. I'll pop that in the chat for anyone that wants it. Platform specific code. That's the one. Writing platform specific code. This one here. Let me see if I can bring this up on the share. Bear with. Share. And there we go. So yeah, on this web page, you'll see it talks about the platform specific different platforms, and it's about understanding this image, which is sort of the diagram around how platform specific code works, right? So what we're actually saying here is, one picture. The Flutter app has a thing called a method channel. This method channel sends buffers of data. So they're like raw bytes buffers back and forth. So they have to be serialized and managed. So there's several different implementations. There's a JSON one which basically serializes your objects into JSON. Your request goes over, unserializes it, that kind of thing. There's also a couple. Anyway, there's various different ones. But it's about working out the best channel to communicate inside the engine to outside the Dart engine, Dart environment, and you might find that depending on your performance aspect of your data, what you're building as a database, that you might want to work out a different channel, like shared memory or some sort of shared memory queue system, double uniqueness, that kind of fun stuff, or possibly like a socket, local socket, a Unix socket, or something like this, which might make it easier to just take your data without serializing in some fashion. Alternatively, if you don't want to use one of those, I did mention this just now, but I'll bring this up here actually, because a lot of people don't know this, so I'll impart some knowledge briefly whilst we're talking about this. So on the API dev stuff, you'll find method channel. And each method channel, so method channel is just a channel for a method, right, on the platform. John's not hidden there. And what you'll find, it's bigger. Hope that's big enough for everyone to see. You'll see here encoding a binary before the sent and received, and they use a method codec to do that. And there's various, you can see here, JSON method codec, the one I just mentioned, the standard method codec. But equally enough, you can implement your own, and that might be the benefit of what you can do, because if you're getting your results back from the database as like a byte buffer anyway, or some sort of buffered object, send it as the buffer straight over the channel, and then do the decoding in Dart, for example, right? That way you're just not having to decode, recode, encode, decode again. So you're not doing it twice, right? Things like that. So there might be optimizations, and again, this comes down to throughput. And again, if you're just doing a database, if you're just doing your first run, get it working, right? Get it working, do an MVP. And then you can think about optimizations. But this is probably a benefit. Yeah, somewhere between that communication channel is probably a benefit. I've never used libSQL. I don't know anything about the details of it. So, but it would be interesting. Please let us know how it goes. And briefly, yeah, standard method codec supports a a compressed model of sending these various values back. You can't send any object. It can only be these almost primitive type, if you will. And each one is given as like a number that it's associated to. You actually see the right value here. I think we can bring up the source code. We'll see. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, blah, 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 blah. And when the receiver receives this number, it knows the following list is going to be a unit list, so it reads the count and then each item and so on. So it's a basic sort of serialization technique that's used in quite a few places. Both the standard is going to be more performant than JSON. However, JSON is more debuggable. So you might want to do something like use JSON codec for debug, use the static codec in release or something like that. Yeah, there you go. That's my point on that, I think. Does anyone else? Sorry, it's not true.
Not on that one. Nope.
And I did mention ISAR, right? So I again,
Yeah.
I will mention this because ISAR is an awesome package. ISAR database. I'll pop that in the channel for anyone wants to take a look. Yeah.
I did notice this though. This is strange. I don't know why someone would fork SQLite. It doesn't make any sense to me.
It does to me when someone goes, "Oh, it doesn't do what I wanted to do, so I'm going to do something else." I'm just saying that, and like we see it all the time in like the Flutter packages, right? When it's like it doesn't do exactly what I wanted to do, so I'm going to fork someone else's package and add that functionality, and then publish a new package, right? Which is fine. I mean, it's kind of interesting because I was talking about we had a Flutter ecosystem committee meeting the other day, and one of the things that came up was this kind of what's the word? Not what was that? What was that thing you used to do with sectors on your hard drive? Reorganize your sectors on your hard drive. Fragmentation. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the moment, like you get this fragmentation where you might have 5 packages all around the same thing, and each one does slightly different features and if you can just bring them together, right? So you make one awesome package that's really well coded by 5 people, right? So it's not one person just all doing it all by themselves. You get 5. You get and you get just imagine, right? Like you've got 5 packages that do like I don't know position scrolling. It's like no, let's make one awesome package for position scrolling. Migrate all your users from all 5 packages to one. Agree to all work together on one repo, and then you get a really good maintenance of that repo because you've got 5 people, 5 engineers. So if one cart isn't available, someone else can pick up the slack. It works out really well, and you get one awesome package at the end of it. So if anything, my message would be to the authors of these packages: reach out to other people and see if you can work with them, right? See if you can join forces because it's to the benefit of everyone and yourselves. Anyway,
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Next. What's next?
Sorry, kind of went off on one. Next question.
There we go. Is it possible to use abstraction with the theme extension to allow multiple color schemes to be fetched at runtime based on brightness and widget variant pattern or parameters? Yes. And actually, I've been setting up for this while Simon's been talking. So it's actually not that hard.
Hang on. You can have multiple. You can't have multiple instances of the same theme extension because it uses the class name. So he says, "Is it possible to use abstraction?" I'm wondering if that's the right.
Is it possible to use multiple color schemes within a single
to
theme
allow for
extension?
multiple color schemes to be fetched in runtime? So on Brighton and widget variant. I mean, that's what theme extension is, but it obviously know that. So what is the question?
Well, look, here is what I believe this is saying. What you can do, this is your theme extension color palette, right? So you have an instance of each of these things here. So let's say outline, background button, divider, color, all these different things. So then you put this into the custom theme extension. Now, here's an interesting thing, though. There's only one instance here called color palette. There is nothing stopping you from making 10 instances of the color palette and putting it into a single theme extension. Then, when you instantiate it, you make a constant the theme extension, but instead of just a single color palette, it would say color palette 1, color palette 2, color palette 3. And then you still use just the same theme extension, but instead of saying theme extension dot color palette, you would have color palette 1, color palette 2, color palette 3. And you choose which one depending upon your situation.
There's a follow-up to this.
Okay. Extract the theme extension and have multiple schemes under the abstract, but for some reason, yes, I didn't use an abstract class, so I can't help you with that one.
Hang on, we have multiple schemes under an abstract class, but for some reason, objects of those concrete classes are not found in the tree. Yes. So you need to be looking for the concrete implementation, because it doesn't use it doesn't do type detection on the tree or the inheritance tree of a class. It's on the top level class, as it were, of your thing. So you can't do a theme extension. I see what you're saying now. Sorry, I see what Lazar's saying now. You can't do a theme extension of an abstract class and look for that abstract class. It has to be of the concrete implementation. But to be honest, like, theme extension is just a platform specified way of doing this. You can literally do this yourself with like like nothing stops you from just doing a like provider or other ways of doing this. And then you can have fields that contain your abstract classes. There's a ton of different ways to do this. You don't have to use theme extensions. Theme extension does do one thing, which is it does lerping by default, like built, so it will, as the theme changes, it will transition for you. But you can actually hook into that and do things yourself. Like
you could do different theme extensions, but I think that's a lot more work. I would personally just do different color palettes.
I want to know why he's got abstract classes, because if it's to generify it, you can do generic classes, and then you're looking for your implementation of your. I think it is still the concrete implementation of your generic class, actually. Saying that. Pass, as what I say. Try look at generic.
He said yes, it is.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah,
I say try looking at adding generic, an extra generic type to your own theme extension and see how that works. But to be honest, yeah, you could just do it yourself. It's not too difficult.
So what? There's at least 3 different ways to approach it.
Oh, at least maybe more.
Before we had theme extensions, how do we do it?
Right after we figure out which is the right state management solution, we'll figure out which is the right approach to this.
You could probably do this with state management too.
You could
have it as part of a Riverpod provider.
Yep.
You could store the theme extension in a Riverpod provider, and that way you could override it for testing. Okay. I'll shut up.
Hopefully that helps.
Can you point me to how to fix this? Which way? There are lots.
Yeah, which way?
There are now n squared ways. Yes, n squared.
O of n squared.
Yes.
How to fix this? Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I think looking up the tree for an abstract class is not the way to do this. So I think what you could do is look up the tree for a concrete class that has fields that contain your abstract implementations, perhaps. But I don't know how you're using the tree, if you're trying to override the theme in subtrees, or what the other complications are in your situation. So we can't really give an exact answer. But hopefully, like you can look up as is basically what Scott showed. You can look up the tree for a theme extension, and inside the extension you have fields, and those fields can be your abstract. It can have instances of your abstract classes, right? So you can actually have the fields be your abstract, and then you can have whatever concrete implementation there. Therefore, you can look up the tree to find your theme extension to then access your implementations of your abstract classes.
and I didn't use an abstract because I have a singleton instance of the colored palette. If I was going to have multiple instances, I might have used an abstract class. So in your case, probably yes, make the color palette abstract and then make multiple instances of it.
And you can also you could also actually put those so you can actually put theme extensions inside theme extensions, because you can alert a theme extension and copy with them. So you can actually have fields that are theme extensions inside a theme extension. I know it sounds crazy, but that would probably be the easiest way to take what you currently have, wrap a theme extension around them, make it concrete, and now you've got a way of providing abstract ones.
Flutter is one of the easiest ways to do cross-platform unless you make it complicated, which you can do, as you have just seen.
It's too.
Yo, dog, I heard you like theme extensions, so I put theme extensions in your theme extensions.
Theme extensions all the way down.
That's right.
Wait a minute. We favor composition over inheritance, so we built a theme extension of theme extensions.
Wait,
is that going to be? Hang on.
No,
is that going to be theme extension of context of theme extension?
No.
What are you doing?
No. With great composition comes decomposition.
Yep.
With great power comes great irresponsibility.
I mean, we said this before, right? Like I've definitely said this before, and that is, Flutter is great, and the reason why it's great is it gives you the flexibility to do what you want to do.
Yep.
So it doesn't get in your way. However, the problem is, because it's so flexible, there's a ton of different ways of doing things.
Yep.
And you can also maybe that also makes it easier to shoot yourself in the foot sometimes.
Yeah.
Or at least to maybe make up code that's just you end up in a mess.
What was it? 3.5 to 4 years before people were like, "How do I structure my folders? How do I structure my directories?" And everybody was like, "Any way you want."
Well, I love the questions
on either feature, type, or block.
Yeah,
and I'm counting. Oh God, the one that begins Redux with block, because they're a similar structure.
Yeah,
but at least now we're down to 3 different ways to do this: feature, type, or block Redux style.
I think, we always say this: consistency, right? Mm-hmm. It's like it doesn't matter if you mix 2 state managements together to accomplish what you want to do, as long as you're consistent throughout your application. Don't just do one thing over here, one thing over there, this thing over there. Do it different over here, and then go, "Oh, now I need to maintain all these different things."
Yeah.
Right?
No, I was thinking of this the other day when, looking at some Discord questions, when people say, well, what's the right way to do this? Well, sometimes the right way is the way that works, because there is so many different ways. Now, there are instances where there are reasons one way is better than another. But asking what's the right way is not necessarily the right thing to do. What's a way to solve the problem,
And it's also like, what is your problems you're trying to solve, right? Because there's certain ways of doing things. Like saying what is the best solution. It's like, well, what are you exactly trying to solve? And that asking someone just that question is super difficult because there's so many edge cases and problems in that exact sort of space that they're trying to solve. So you cannot give someone like the best solution for their problem because you can't understand the problem.
Right. Yeah. Well, especially in, a forum like Discord or something where you're just getting a small few lines of a question.
Talking about this,
you also want.
Hold on. I'll go do a segue here. People can submit their code reviews, their code for review here. So then we can share, we can all have this experience of going through and
we would take half an hour on each piece of code. Are you kidding me?
No, but we want people to submit and then we can
That's why our shows are like 3 hours long, because we do an hour of QA and then Simon spends 2 to 3 hours doing code review of a couple of files.
What you should do, Simon, is just let people watch, get everybody under NDA and then just watch them work so you can have this as billing hours.
I was going to add one aspect to this before we get moving on from this topic is that also be sure to think about as an axis of how to choose what to do is you don't necessarily want a novel solution because it means harder to find people that can understand it to make further maintenance for you. Yep. So sometimes you want to use just one of the big guys just because you can find people that understand Riverpod and not necessarily my homegrown state management solution, or something like that. Even though that might be better in the short term, think about long term and how you would bring in people to ramp up on stuff.
Yep.
The other thing to say, that that's where we say about consistency, right? Because it's like, it's the same thing. If you're doing like using 10 different things in 10 different ways, then if someone needs to maintain that, they didn't write the code, you can maintain it because you wrote the code, you know where every line is, but someone else needs to come on, they have no clue where any of this code is or what it does. Okay, you can document it, but they need to still sit through it, understand it, and possibly step through it or debug it in some fashion to understand it. So it's that same thing of if this is a Riverpod, then it's like, okay, I understand Riverpod, I can deal with this or debug it, right? And we're saying Riverpod, but provider with get it, or whatever.
Yep.
And Chris was saying it's not so flexible. Chris, go ahead and make a custom widget that you can put in a PR. You will be famous for this widget. Okay. What I want you to do is take either grid view or a column. And for desktop and web, this thing will double check with a layout builder the proportions of the window. And as the window size changes, it will move from a grid view to a single child scroll view to whatever it is that's needed for that aspect ratio. And that, so you use breakpoints the same way a lot of people do for other things, but have this do breakpoints and change the widget display as it goes. It'll be so easy for people to use. You'll be famous. And believe me, by the time you're done, you will be crying because the potential flexibility will kill you because it's decision paralysis on which way you're going to go.
But also the other side you have with that is that this is what happens with the library. So give you an example. Let's say you built that, right? It wouldn't be accepted into the Flutter library because it's too specific.
Complex.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not just complex, right? You can build it out of a few components, but the problem here is it becomes too specific in its behavior, right? So now you need to code, every library is coded with lots of parameters to make it flexible, right? The inflexibility is normally the constraining point of any library, and one of the reasons why the composition pattern, the character pattern of UI that's in Flutter works really well, because it means it's flexible, right? So the reason they give you all this stuff, they give you the tools to do all this stuff, but it's up to you to do it. At some point, you need to decide what is library specific and what is generic and what is specific to my application. And normally those breakpoints, the behavior of how something alters on the screen and layout and so on, is very specific to your application. So it's great to say, I want this thing to change from this.
But you could put parameters in to change them.
But that's what they've done. So that's why you've got, you got scaffold, and what was the other? There's a couple of them where you can a couple of widgets where basically you change the width and it hides the drawer opens up, I think, on scaffold when it's wide enough.
Right.
When it's not, it hides. And these are material design. These are designed. But if you notice, you can't choose any other way of doing that. It's like that's hard coded in there because that's a very specific behavior to the layout. And a la material design, that is the specification. So if you want to do it, you just custom do it yourself. But I think that this is, I feel like I'd say laziness. I don't think it's laziness, but you have to learn to do these things yourselves, right? Like you can't expect us to download the library and plug it in. It does it all for you, right?
And customizing framework widgets is not unusual, especially buttons.
Yeah.
But if you want to know the right way to do it, ask the duck.
I tell you what, that elevate button dot style from, a lot of people don't realize. So when you make an elevate button, outline button, text button widget, they have a style parameter, and most people just implement the class, and then you have to have all these parameters, and it just gets crazy. What you actually need to do is there's actually a static overriding constructor which is called whatever that is. Like this is an elevate button. It's elevate button dot style from, and you just provide the one attribute that you need, and it does all the rest for you.
Yep.
But yeah.
In other words, it allows you to do things the way we used to do them. That's the way I think of it.
You're not wrong. The reason why they give, but it's kind of interesting because people were complaining about not having the flexibility. Then they gave us the flexibility with all these parameters and the states, material states, and you can do whatever you want. So when it's hovering, you can change the color to wherever you want, and you get that flexibility. But then no one wants to type all that stuff in, so then they give you the statics of constructor, which just gives you the basics. So they give you the best of both worlds, but you can't win. And definitely as a framework, library, you can never win. You're always going to have one person that doesn't like what you're doing, or one person that does, and right? All right, let's more questions.
Next,
and,
what's next?
Slight reminder: get your questions in with the key in front of them, and our question magician Randall will dig them out the chat and stick them in a list so we can find them. Right, next question.
All right, in desktop, I constrain the width of my content to 400 pixels. Huge empty spaces on the side. Content is a single child scroll view. How can I scroll the content while the mouse is out on the empty area? I have a 4K monitor.
Yeah, 400 pixels is pretty small, but
no. But there can be reasons. There can be reasons for that.
Yeah, sure. But it's probably just in the setup, right? I mean, they're constraining the scroll view instead of the content inside of it.
That's it. Yeah. So all it is. So if you go look at single child scroll view, it has a parameter called padding.
Yeah.
And what you can do is you would put padding, and so you can do two things actually. So that's officially where if you want to put padding in a nice scrollable area, but all equally inside your single child scroll view, just stick a size box with your 400 or minimum, however you do it, your constrained box inside that, and inside it put a center. So now your scroll view is the size of your screen. It's got a center inside of that centers the content, and then inside that you've got your limited width content. Now when you scroll your mouse up and down, it's inside the proportion of the scroll view that covers the entire screen. What you're saying right now is you're putting the scroll view 400 wide in the middle, which obviously means it's only going to scroll this portion that's in the middle of the screen. So again, this is a lot of UI. I'll just be clear about it. A lot of UI and animation things is smoke and mirrors, mirages, right? Like that example there, you don't know where that scrolling region is, but that's up to you to make that choice.
So basically you're saying like take a size box, expand, slap a single child scroll view in it, then a center, then you're 400 wide.
No, opposite. So that's what they're doing
you've
now.
Got to set the size of the single child scroll view somehow.
Well, it's just taking up the whole page, right?
Right. And the way to get it to do that, I'm thinking, as a size box expand, which will force maximum constraints on it.
The contents are coming from mono repos, so no idea to constrain there. You can still do that. It's what's called composition. You can just wrap that content with a center.
The overall issue is just where they're constraining to the 400 pixels. They're constraining the whole thing down to 400 instead of constraining the stuff inside the scrollable area to 400.
And is there a magical way to constrain the content and pass scrolling data to their scroll views? I mean, you need to explain that a bit more, because I mean, in the end of the day, is you just assuming you've got the content that's inside, you can just lay it however you want. If you're saying they're providing the scroll view to you, and they don't provide that feature, well, then that's down to them, right? Like, but to be honest, I would just get the content without the scroll view and then just put the scrolling in yourself.
Yeah, that's my question right there. Is the contents including the scroll view? In which case, it gets kind of weird.
Yeah, again, is there a way to constrain the content and pass scrolling data to their scroll views? I mean, you just put a size box around it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I need to know more. Perhaps I don't know. It's hard to diagnose these things on the. Hopefully, it helps. But
Come find us in Discord.
If you follow it up, it's really important to know whether the scroll view is in your app or if it's in the content you're getting.
Discord or the Flutter community Slack, one or two.
Yep.
Find us there.
Yeah, find us in Discord. Randall and I and others can
hunt Randall down on Stack Overflow.
No, don't. Yeah.
To be honest, though, posting. I have to say, I really want to be clear. One of the reasons why we answer questions in these open forums is so everyone gets the answer. So posting a question on Stack Overflow and then posting the link in Discord is great, because you can answer it on Stack Overflow, and everyone, when they're searching for a problem, knows they can go find it, and everyone gets the solution, right? So I would say that. It's a one-to-many solution, not a many-to-many.
All right.
Next question.
All When using Melos, I cannot write a condition to create a folder or file because of the slash. The window said it's invalid file name character.
You do a double. It's a double
You
backslash.
get a 2.
Mhm.
Yeah.
2.
So
Yeah, you have to
backslash
escape the slash.
in all of this in Dart as well. There's not just Dart, but most programming languages, backslash is an escape character for print statements and things like that. Characters. So backslash n is new line. Backslash r is character return. Backslash t is tab. Backslash b is bell. Makes a beep sound when you're on terminal. There's a bunch of other ones, right? And the point here is that you need to escape your escape character. So it's normally backslash, which puts one backslash in.
Actually, no, I'm sorry.
Which is the same as it's the wrong slash on here, but
I'm looking at that thinking I think that's JavaScript.
So yeah, in general, it's two slashes to solve that problem. Yeah, I don't think there's anything.
Well, that's on Windows though. So if you like do this on, never mind.
What?
Forward slashes on other OSs. Anyway,
yeah.
Scott, I can't believe you just typed 2 forward slashes when you were talking about 2 backslashes, but okay.
I actually was talking about 2 forward slashes, but I've been spending too much time in JavaScript, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely not 2 forward slashes.
When I hear HTTP / something, I'm going, it's not a backslash, it's a forward slash.
Do you know what's even worse?
Well,
Yeah,
no, in that
Christian
case,
doesn't instigate anything, does he?
Do you know what's even worse is when you see a URL that's been escaped. So it's HTTP : / //. Have you ever seen that?
Oh yeah, when you get them,
and you're just like, hurts my brain.
Follow up to the question before somebody asked, can we give them a link? Just go to flutter.dev and the community. All the links are there to the Discord and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the flutter.dev website, there's a community page.
Yep, and the Discord link and all our other places.
If you ever have any problem with the link to the Flutter community Slack not working, at Simon or myself, actually no, probably a DM would be better to get our attention, because what ends up happening is Slack is allowing us to have the link used 2,000 times, and then they deactivate it. Well, we have 20,000 users.
So what's really so we change. Oh, it says there's no expiry. You go, okay, no expiry.
There's no expiry. Yeah,
but use case, and you can't change it. So after it's been used X number of times, it stops working, and we have no notice. They don't tell us it's expired. So we just have to manually go in there and redo it every single time. So
I actually forget to tell you, I've got a once a month calendar thing that pops up, says change the Slack link.
Then you should do that. We should just probably just do
actually it says tell Simon to change the Slack link, but
yeah, thanks.
All right. What limitations exist in the parallelism of Flutter web apps? Can we run Dart code concurrently? I haven't found good documentation or examples online.
So I'm gonna just outright say this: Dart does not run on web. What runs on web is JavaScript. JavaScript, it has an event loop. It is single threaded. That is the reason why Dart originally started in that process before Iceland's came along. So that's where that comes from, right? However, you can still do it now with modern browsers. There's a thing called the browser workers,
service workers,
web workers.
Web workers.
So I literally Googled for it, and then up comes this page, which is I popped a link in, was the Mozilla MDN docs, which is basically MDN, the Mozilla Development Network, is turned into the MSDN of web. So you can, if you need something for any of the web APIs, you'll find it here. And yeah, so this web worker API is what does all the magic, allows you to run stuff in the background whilst other JavaScript is running, essentially making JavaScript multi-threaded in the browser. There's other reasons for doing that, PWAs and a bunch of other stuff. I won't go into it now. There is a couple of packages on Pub that allow for work, that wrap the worker API for you to make it easy to use with Dart. And I cannot remember the name of them.
There are packages also even that isolate you, sorry to use that word, but insulate you from whether you're using on the web workers versus when you're on the VM using isolates. So you have the same API for both. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That
this
one
one's
right there.
probably it.
Yeah.
Look, isolated worker, a single isolated worker for all platforms. And on most platforms, use Flutter's isolate, except on web where it uses worker. Well, there you go. I've never used this personally. I understand the practice and how it works, but isolate worker run, do something heavy, I guess 1,000 times. I mean, once that might be one. It might be 1,000 milliseconds. So I don't know. Looks interesting. But yeah, that's essentially how you achieve things. I will mention now that style up. There's a fetch example. That's cool. There is an expense in starting these things up, so you don't want to just like start thousands a second, right? Like you're gonna cause your person a hard day with their browser, right? Like resources are not infinite, so and we're not talking about like CPU time.
Use pools.
Yeah, use pools, use other things. I'm sure there's. I don't know how this thing works. So import scripts. Interesting. Whatever. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Now, the last question kind of reminded me of something that I wanted to bring up. Okay. There is a project that could use a hand, and I really think they're worthwhile. It is the only voice one I've seen that actually does work decently. It's designed for coders, speech to text, and you can customize it in any way you want. It's pretty similar to JavaScript, but the project is not very well maintained. However, there are people joining it all the time because it's still the best thing out there that we can find. It is actually preset for JavaScript and Python and a few other things. It is set up to support Dart. And one of the cool things is if you have snippets or live templates, it's very easy to set it up so that it types in your snippet or live template whenever you say whatever key phrase you give it. You can make it wait 120 milliseconds. So then the code completion on IntelliJ finishes and shows your live template or your snippet, hits enter, everything you need. And it has really been handy. But yeah, it's called Serenade. The website is serenade.ai.
I've shown it on the screen. It's in the chat.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it's interesting.
yeah, if you're interested in that kind of thing.
I remember when voice. I remember doing voice.
Dragon.
What was the
Dragon?
Kurzweil.
Yeah.
Kurzweil.
No.
Was there another one that was strictly for coding like
no, this wasn't for coding. I just remember when voice really came a thing on computers. It was like when LCD monitors just first came out. I feel like it like really gained its own like. I think it was the Kurzweil system. It was like this really like fancy system at the time. Before that, it was based on the phonetic stuff from the way you'd make sounds on computers from the old speech boxes and things like. And they started doing modern stuff like OCR scanning of software and reading it and all this kind of fun stuff. But now we've got AI, and I remember trying like coding back then. It was just like, you say like left bracket colon, $sign for zero. Well, you know what I mean? Like it's just impossible, right? So I do think that this AI stuff really makes that for people that maybe have hurt their hands, they were coders and they can't
Their Discord is full of people who have carpal tunnel, and literally it's painful for them to even type one word. So this is a lifesaver for them. So if you want to get in on a project that can help people, it does use some older AI technology, and the owner or maintainer is still around, but they don't have a lot of time. And he's saying that it may just end up getting replaced by better technology soon. But until it does, people are really depending on this.
Do you wish to convert it to Dart and Flutter?
They would not mind. Trust me. They would not mind at all.
Anyway.
All right, moving on. Two-parter.
How
does one join the Mastodon server, and how does one transfer a plugin to the GitHub repo for preservation due to abandonment? The Mastodon server is kind of tricky because here's the problem. We have to pay for it if it goes beyond a certain amount. So we have simply been restricting how many people are on it due to financial preservation.
Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do right now.
We're going to charge for our APIs an exorbitant amount.
For the next few hours, there's a link that works.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody on the stream. Well, wait a minute.
There's 38 people watching. If they want to get chats, if they want to get accounts, they can. There you go.
Yeah, and how many viewers afterwards?
No, it'll be gone by then. It'll be
Better. He
chat
said
will
the
be
next
gone.
few
Okay.
hours. Yeah.
The chat will be gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay, and the second one, the GitHub repo, that's a very interesting question because have we found anybody to take it over after Jay?
so we've had there's a couple of packages. There's a couple of things that have been happening around various different packages, and it's kind of it needs some help at the moment from the community.
If you want to help, we'd love it. We just, for a quick thing, all of us started this with Flutter and building all the community and the support structure because we wanted to get people in on it and make it popular so we could get paying work. We weren't making very much money and we didn't have the demands on our schedule that we do today. And now we've all got contracts and are just like up to here trying to hit deadlines and balance our lives. And it's also now, how do we keep up with the pace of community stuff that we used to? And the answer is we can't. I mean, Nash used to put 5 hours a day into the medium, and now he's a director at Stream. He's jetting all over the world to various countries working with the people who report to him. And Simon's working, I don't even know, 10, 12 hours a day, 6-7 days a week.
He doesn't sleep.
I probably would be too if I didn't have a lady here who will shoot me if I don't get off the computer for dinner time. But yeah, we need some help.
There is actually the official. Oh god, I just looked at the issues. What? Forgot password. Can't log into Facebook. What is this? God, spam. Spam.
Yeah.
Delete issue. It's people. Yeah. So for example, I bring this up on the chat. We have the Flutter community repo, for want of a better word, and this is where we've been managing this and what the Flutter community packages are. You can see there's quite a few of them now, and how you submit the transfer guide and the various things. And this is what the OP is it? I don't know what the phrase is.
Thank you for the follows, folks, but now I'm going to have to mute my phone.
Yeah, so having these, look, I can't recover my
what?
password. It's such a spam thing, right? It's just
Yep.
But yeah, so here's a package proposal that we've had in the works. This is actually, there you go, look, here he is.
Yes, that's what it's
This
in
is
there,
the official
yes.
one. You've done it correctly, and you've had 21, and it's been there since May 15th. So we do need to sort this out.
Really sorry, dude.
And Jay's no longer taking that, so I'll go.
Jay got a job with VGV,
Yeah.
and they took over his life. So your own is Jay.
Yeah, there's been this pack, if I remember rightly. Yeah, this package is not one that we can directly. So let me explain what's going on here in the community that don't know. Wait clock depends on, I think it's Win32. There's a hang on, I'm gonna find the issue. I have like a list a mile long. Here we go. So I'll bring this in. So this was the issue, yeah. So basically, anyway, there's a issue with the package, and creative maybe not is not available at this time for personal reasons, and he cannot do anything at the moment. So it's literally out of his control. So the point here is that at this moment, this package is dead in the water until who knows when. There's no answer to this.
Looks like it's going to be important.
So the only way to actually solve this is not a transfer, is what we'd normally be doing, which is a transfer of ownership, because he's not available to actually authorize a transfer of the package. So the old package basically just needs to stay where it is, and we generate a new package. Yeah, and this is it. We create a new package as a fork, and it gets published. Now we're happy to have that forked package hosted under the Flutter community repository.
Now the next question, Diego, is can you change Chewy to use the fork? Since you're maintaining Chewy and Chewy is dependent on WakeLock, and WakeLock's locked.
Yeah, that's the whole problem. So what we'll do is bring WakeLock. What we're saying is make a new package for WakeLock, bring it into the community, depend on that from Chewy, solving that problem, and then the only way to actually migrate people is to say, please come use this other package, because there's no way of updating the current one that's out there. There is, there's an ongoing concern about this, obviously, because it's very much like it's very much like domain names, right? If there's a limited number of names for things and things like that, and you don't want the namespace of packages being messed up with lots of random rubbish.
Yeah.
And at the same time, as packages, you're not the owner of that name. Like, that is the person that owns the original. But equally, if they're no longer available, not in the case of this, but let's say Randall runs a package, and then Randall, I don't know, gets hit by a bus one day. I know terrible things might happen. Don't ignore that. But the point here is then literally that's there forever. No one can. He's the only one that had the publishing keys. He's the only one that can do it. So half the reason of doing these Flutter community packages is to solve this problem ahead of time. So it's great to say this is where you got your package, but we're happy for you to run your package from the Flutter community organization where there's some oversight. So if something was to happen to you, God forbid, then at least what happens then is someone else can take over the package and continue it running. So reach out to the team, and Diego, let's catch up on Slack. That's the best way of doing that. And then
hit us up, because Chewy is critical. It's critical to my work. I'm using Chewy.
So Scott will sort it out for you. Yeah.
Scott will fix it.
I never messed with any of the GitHub
if it's for work, he
before.
can charge for it. That's the way it works.
My job was the Slacks. John's job is the medium.
Would those be corduroys or jeans?
Oh dear, terrible.
What do you mean slime up? You're not on Slack?
Those that follow on the those that follow on the or join the Mastodon server, you can add me on your follow list right there. There you go. And you can find Scott and others.
Except the ampersand. Don't put the ampersand there.
Yeah. So I think Randall's got one on there, and John, you've got one on there, haven't you? And
you got Merlin though, right, Randall? Randall?
He's.
I'm Randall Schwartz.
He's muted. Oh, there you go.
Randall Schwartz. Okay.
Yeah.
I was about to say he doesn't have one, and that he's going to go get one because he's cool. I see him on there. He's on there. What was I saying? There he is.
Huh.
Hang on.
Word is there might be an invite link somewhere.
Look at that. DeLorean and everything.
Oh, on there. Yes, I am up there. Yeah.
Wow.
So come join us on the Mastodon. Right. Moving forward. That's the next question, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Common.
Want to create a tutorial effect, highlight button or element with a tooltip to explain what it is, and the next button. Oh, that's nice for onboarding.
There's a few. I threw a link that you can share. There.
I did that.
That's a popular one. There's a few of them out there that do the same thing. So you can just
John, you want to present that?
I'm going to bring it up.
Scott's going to bring it up. Yeah. But there's one called Showcase, a package called Showcase you can use. Showcase View.
I was literally trying to remember what the package name was for this because
but there are a few. I've seen a few others out there as well. This one is probably the most popular and pretty easy to use. But there are a few others if you go searching for tutorials and stuff like that in pub.dev.
Showcase is the I'm trying to remember. It was Material, wasn't it, that came up with a Showcase, wasn't it? I feel like there was actually a Material. Yeah, here it is. Can I steal the screen for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
So there was a material like UI thing around show. Oh no, this is something else. It's not at all. I'm pretty sure there was like no, it's not it. I'm pretty sure that I can't remember the name of it. There was that kind of pattern of like highlight like a ring around like an object to highlight a view and put like a little message and a next button, that kind of thing. What came out as part of Material Design 1 back in would have been Lollipop. Let's see if I can find it. Hey, look, I found it. Is this it? I think this is it. So, I wonder if this will play. Oh, no, maybe not. Maybe there's something. Again, showcases this a random word like that. Not funny.
Oh, looks really good.
Sure
Showcase view.
Showcase view. Yeah, that's the package. But there was another. Yeah, Super Tooltip is another one from Matt Carroll.
Yep.
Which is more about showing a tooltip, but having it like be in the correct position on the screen, if I'm right.
Just looking for.
But equally, you know, it's not too difficult to do these things yourselves.
Yeah.
So this is brings up the stream. This is
although the effect of making it look larger is interesting.
I thought Super was Mac. I think there's another one. Anyway, that is Matt Carroll did. I can't remember. But if you're interested in actually doing your own thing like this, the way you do it is with what's called a follower layer. It's composited transform follower and composited transform target. So, funny enough, you put your target loads. Sorry.
And also, these are on separate layers, if I remember correctly. I haven't worked on them in a while.
These, they produce separate layers, but that's immaterial to the way it looks. So composite transform target is you'd wrap your widget, like your icon that you want to wrap your tutorial with one of these widgets, and you give it what's called a layer link. And then you when you click on it or you want to show it, you use the composite transform follower in your, let's say, dialog route or whatever you're using to pop up. And this will ensure that if it's used the same layer link, it ensures the two things are shown on top of each other. And then you provide these alignments, follow alignment, target alignment, to position your thing around that widget when you see it on the screen, if that kind of makes sense. So this is, let's say you've got a tooltip, right? You have your icon and you do tooltip and you say align right, it's going to appear to the right of the button. And it doesn't matter if you scroll up and down, the two things will move together and things like that. So they're linked together, basically. The layers are linked together in the compositor. So it means that if you scroll, you're not repainting everything. It's just recompositing the view out of the layers. So it's a lot more efficient.
John did post. Yep. And I've actually got it up. It looks really nice.
So bring it up.
I'm bringing it up.
Bring it up.
Yeah, it doesn't have as many likes. Popularity is lower, but it is a decent one. That
likes are overrated.
Well. Yeah, well.
You look at certain state management packages, but anyway.
Can you zoom in, Scott?
Yeah.
There you go. That's okay. That works. Okay. Yeah.
So
I did. I did one of these things. I did one of these onboarding. Not onboarding.
Sorry.
I did one of these showcase / onboarding things a long time ago, and the designer wanted like this big finger icon pointing at like the thing that you would like to do on the screen.
Yeah.
But the problem is you couldn't guarantee where the thing would be positioned on the screen, so I had to work out where the angle of the finger would point to. Like it's not like a white hand or whatever, right? Icon. I had to work out where it would be in position with the text and like everything else. They'd always fall within the bounds of the window.
Screen, the screen. Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
It was
Is
so
it pointing
complicated.
up? Is it pointing left? Is it pointing right? Is it
Yeah,
pointing
and
down?
you have
Is
to flip it because
yeah.
it won't on the other side. The graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's fun. I'm sure.
Yeah. Next.
All right.
Next question.
Very cool. Flutter
Flutter is dropped.
3.10.5.
Oh, look.
Yes.
Everybody, Perl upgrade.
There's wait a minute. Why is that up there? It doesn't have a queue.
Uh-oh.
Where?
Busted.
Question magician failure.
That literally dropped during the stream.
Oh,
I thought
optimization.
Yeah,
optimization.
right as we started, I think.
Not a
Wasn't
failure.
one that just dropped like 24 hours ago,
Moments
48
ago.
hours ago?
No.
No.
An hour ago.
Oh, an hour ago, this one. Okay.
Yeah, like right
yeah.
as we started.
Right.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
There you go.
It is so. If people don't know, there's a Google group called Flutter Announce. This is where they announce these things. You should be following it if you're anything to do with Flutter. And you can see here, we're pleased to announce 3.10.5 stable channel hotfix to address these issues. So preventing the use of integration tests when using AGP. That's the Android Gradle plugin version 8. Good to know. Fix on errors encountered when attempting to use add to app on Android when generating Flutter modules. Oh, okay. Fix preventing assets from being displayed properly on low-res, low pixel density devices. Fix when using image assets not displayed when serving on with Microsoft IIS. What century are we in? Sorry, John.
Wait. That's like when I started 24 years ago. That was what I was supporting.
Oh wow, there you go.
I understand it's only a problem when using Internet Explorer, though.
Oh well, that's not a problem because nobody uses that anymore.
Yeah, nobody uses Explorer anymore.
It's Edge
Fixes
now.
bad cast in the front end, which can manifest as a crash to .js list of factory sure web. Handles formatting nullable record types with no fields.
Wow.
Okay, interesting. Fixes error when using records when targeting the web in development mode. Yeah, and now run Flutter upgrade. Thanks, Kevin, for your update.
I would be curious though, with all of these Flutter updates, has anyone else been running into dependency problems in PubSpec YAML with Meta and International INTL?
So the answer is yes, because like the newer so those things are updated with like the beta channel, right? So what you're actually seeing is if you upgrade on stable, those newer versions, the point releases are ahead. And the answer is don't install those.
Okay, the problem is when I try to update to, I think it's 19, I get a problem and I have to back it down to 18. Yeah. It seems like the packages are not caught up yet.
No, they are. That's the point of any set of dependencies, especially dependencies that are always being migrated, like the test ones and some and internationalization. And some of the core ones, you're going to be using ones that are older. You can't always use the most recent ones because you're not using the most recent code of Flutter. If you're using beta,
that's what I'm saying is when I see what you mean. You're not using beta, even though if you update the stable right now.
Yeah. So those relates because the packet the dependency releases are ahead, right? Because they need to come out first before the stable comes out. So, you can't always update to the most recent packet. That's by the way the correct exists, right? So that you can do like 1.16.0 and then get the point release of 0.1 at the end once that comes out, right? If you're not, you don't always have to put all the numbers in, right? Semver, go look up PubSpec. You know what we're talking about if you're curious about all this version stuff. Cool.
Okay, I am going to have to get going. Hour and 20 minutes is longer than I've been able to stay before, but it has been cool. Got to get some stuff done today. So you guys all have fun. Enjoy. It was great being back. And we'll see you soon.
Happy back. Yeah. See you later.
Bye, Scott. I just wanted to say that the nullable empty record is the 4 characters, left parenthesis, comma, right parenthesis, question mark. And it's not surprising they didn't get that correct initially.
Oh my goodness me, yeah.
A 1 item or a 0 item record has to have a trailing comma to distinguish it from normal parens.
Yeah, or just as an empty set parens, right? Yeah.
And so an empty one is just the comma in the middle, and then nullable means question mark on the end. So you got to get those 4 characters exactly in the right order. Not surprising they didn't do that right.
I'm having flashbacks of my Perl days when you had to put random characters, like an @ symbol followed by a $sign followed by a star to dereference it, or some weird, crazy things with characters.
Yeah.
Right. And the happy clown emoticon. Yeah, imagine if emoji had been available when Larry first created Perl.
Yes. Here's the interesting thing. As a programming language, right? It has to be typable, right, on your keyboard, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Guaranteed, not every keyboard is the same, but that's why, very similarly, most languages stick with ASCII, right, in terms of the characters that they use inside their language, because they're universally acceptable in lots of different platforms and lots of different things. You haven't got a problem. So to put Unicode in there Unicode has always been literally kicked out of most programming languages because you can't just support those special characters, right? Even in identifiers and symbols and things like that, it causes problems. However, I have liked it when I've seen programming languages. I think Python does this. I can't remember. Where you can put things like the delta symbol or omega. So especially when you're doing algorithms or something else where you actually have a reference to those things. So rather than writing the variable name delta, right, or delta 2 for delta squared, you can actually put delta squared as the Unicode characters and actually have that as the variable name. We can't do that in Dart. But I would like Dart to kind of maybe have its valid symbol characters be expressive a bit more in terms of supporting some of these symbols. I think it'd be really effective as a programming language.
Perl 6 as designed included Unicode operators. But always had an alternative way of representing it in ASCII. So there was always an ASCII for every possible Unicode emoticon.
So the Unicode ligature operators you're talking about. So let's say you have what was it, less than or equal to, right? So you normally would have 2 active characters. If you're enabling ligatures in your editor, it joins into one Unicode character.
You can literally do that.
Only.
Yes.
But if you were to put that in your code base, oh my gosh.
It works. It works in Perl. Yes, Perl 6. Yes. Still does. Yes.
I mean,
why do you think I'm not in the Perl 6 camp, actually? This is a little part of it.
I have to say, it's great to have those kind of things in the symbols and the naming of things to give you more flexibility.
Yeah. Oh, you put them there too. Oh, yeah.
But to have
class names,
I feel like having a language that uses those symbols, because you can't type them.
Right.
So yes,
you can.
Well,
on
you
the
can.
Right keyboard.
You can.
Well,
or it's, it's like the Alt Shift.
But that's what I'm trying
Yeah, it's only 17 steps on an iPhone keyboard to type some of those. That's not too bad, really. You can do that on a bus. While you're bouncing around on the bus, trying to get to that Unicode character that's
I'm still
now
looking
a little to the left.
I'm still looking for the best mobile keyboard that supports programmers. Because every time I try and type an example out to someone on my mobile phone, I'm go to 5 different screens of symbols to find the right one. And then once I press it, it resets back. And then I can't get I have to do it all over again to get to oh my god.
I'll take that to the Swift Key team and tell them they need to implement a programmer keyboard for their
box, which sorts that out.
You need to read position of the phone as one of your meta characters. So if it's held like this, you get to some characters. If it's tilted this way, you get to other characters. And this way sees the other half, the lowercase versions of the other characters.
No, I got it. When you hold your phone like this, it darkens the keyboard and everything because you're in bed.
Right.
If you spin the phone, it creates the rounded characters for the various functions. Yes.
Yeah, but seriously, I think there's reasons to have those, and it would be nice to see them. Anyway, moving on. Right, we're way off topic. Next question.
Why not, though? Why not?
How can we save scroll position of a long list in Firestore list view? E.g., if I click on item to open detail page, use Navigator 2 and navigate back, it always scrolls to the start position. Okay, so what you actually have you need to check your route settings because it's probably not saving the state. or you're rebuilding somewhere, you've got a bug where you're rebuilding when you probably got a future builder or a stream builder above your Firestore list view that is not got initial data set on it. Because what's going to happen is, so you got your two screens, so you got your list, your Firestore list view. Well, your issue is probably nothing to do with Firestore list view. So first of all, and you do not need to save the position at all. That's implicit, right? So let me just throw that out there. So Firestore list view is here. You tap on an item, it takes you to the detail page that sits on top. Now, what's going to happen is the screen that's underneath is essentially removed from the UI. The state still exists, everything else. And then what happens is when you come back, the render objects get recreated and everything else, and your state is inflated, shall we say, just for want of a better word. And then what's happening at that point is it rebuilds the UI and it causes the build to happen. And you can test to see if this is a bug in your own code by doing set state at like the top of your UI. Make a button, like wrap your entire UI in a stack, and make a button, put a floating button in your stack, and when you tap on it, it does set state and it rebuilds the entirety of your entire UI, which is essentially what's happening because it comes back from the thing, it needs to rebuild it, and somewhere you're telling to reload the screen, which means it has to reload everything, which means, especially if you flip out like from a future builder, or a lot of people do this thing with a future builder or a stream builder. In fact, Randall has a video on this topic exactly on his YouTube channel, which is linked somewhere in the YouTube here. If you go to our channel and then other channels, you'll find Randall's channel. And what happens is if you don't have an initial data value, it then has to call the future again, load a new future, and of course then you're getting the loading states. Then your little thing that shows a loading spinner shows for maybe a blink of the eye, maybe one frame, and then it loads your data. So what you've done is because you've changed the widget structure, you've thrown away all your state that was there underneath. And in doing so, you've told it to lose the position of the list view, essentially lose the position that you're in, and that's by your choice in the way that you've structured your code normally. I don't think there's a problem with Firestore list view or anything like that. I don't know Firestore list view is not part of Flutter, so I think that's part of the maybe Firebase UX package or something like that. I can't remember, but it's nothing to do with navigating. The problem you're probably finding here is that you're looking for Firestore list view and you're looking for Navigate 2.0 and all this kind of stuff, and that's not where the problem that exists. So hopefully that helps. You can, if this still persists as a problem and it turns out it's something else, maybe just don't use Firestore list view and just build your own list view. You don't need to. You can just query Firestore directly and do it yourself, right? I don't literally see any reason why you want a library for Firestore list view. You could do that yourself easy enough. It's calling a future or a stream builder, and then that's it. It's not complicated. You get your documents back, your document snapshots, and you just display those in the list, right? With your widgets. It's a few lines. Stateful widget done. If the other one I was going to say, follow up from this, is if you do want to save your scroll position, for example, your app is backgrounded and then your app is shut down, and when they come back, you want to display the list of items exactly where they left off. For example, like a Twitter news feed. That is a completely separate problem from what's being asked for. But we'll talk about this briefly, and that is there is a set of we didn't mention. I've definitely mentioned this. I've done a talk on this, so I definitely know. I'm going to find it here. Hang on. So I'll bring it up on stream. So there's a whole set of restorable properties. So restorable int, num, int, bool, blah blah blah, and these all work into I can't remember what it's called now. Yeah, restorable properties linked to the restorable mixin, and you have a restorable bucket, and all of this register for restoration. There's a whole. In fact, there's some. I'm pretty sure there's some YouTube videos on the Flutter thing for dealing with state restoration. Yeah, restorable counter, right? So you can press all this, and then the count will come back, and then it shows you restorable scope ID to your material app. And you make a restorable int or whatever you want for your state, so with a restorable mixin, whatever widget you want. And that's it, really. That you register that you want this variable to be restored, and when it gets restored, it calls a function, and your state is restored. And that's more or less how you do this, right? So in terms of scrolling, let's say your example here of Firestore. The problem here is more data may come in since the app has been, you've gone away from the screen. So you can't save the position. If you say position 10, when they come back, well, position 10 may not be the same item they're looking at on the screen, right? And you can't save the pixel offset because, again, it means you have to lay out all those widgets beforehand to get that pixel to position, and you know that doesn't work either. So you end up with in the realm of doing some custom scrolling stuff. I won't go into too much right now, but what you actually need to save is the item ID. So whatever the document is that they're viewing, like the message or the whatever, you save that ID, and then what you do is you can then, when it loads back up again, you can say load all the data until that point, or load the cache and find that position and then show that. So you're actually referencing on the data that they were seeing, not on some display offset or some index into some data set, because again, that index can change. So it's always the ID that you want to restore to, for the most part, at least. And again, that's just restorable string. It's in there. You'll find it in the restorable. I know there's for the life of me, I can't. I should probably find my talk I did on it. I'm sure there's a page on flutter.dev about REST state restoration. Let's see if I can find it and dump it in the chat. Briefly. Well, there's a few Flutter. There's a few. Oh yeah, state restoration for Android applications. I'll pop it in the chat. I know this does, I think, affect others, but there's an overview in here about how it all works, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, I'll let you have a play with it if you're interested. All right, moving on. You don't need to do. By the way, this is only state restoration is only when they leave your app. There's nothing to do with like stateful widgets or that. State is a generic term for some variables, right? But that's specifically about when you leave your app and come back to your app. State restoration is for that. All right. Next question.
Simon, before you answer this one, just want to say, if you want to do any live coding today, we probably ought to start wrapping up questions. We only have a few more anyway.
I mean,
do you want to do live coding, or do you want us to keep doing
we
questions?
We could do a bit of live. I think we could do it. I mean, how long have you guys got? I don't want to like hold you.
I'm probably gonna have to take off here pretty soon, but I can stick around for a little bit.
Let's leave it to the audience if the audience wants to see something. I'm trying to think of like something we could do, like maybe a little example or something. I don't know.
Okay, let's cut off questions. Let's cut off questions right now then, and unless you have a proposal for what Simon should be coding, you can put that in right now, and we will do
put that in right now.
Yeah, yeah. So we're cut off.
I'm sure there was like, maybe that showcase thing. Maybe show that how that works.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
All right, next question then. I'm integrating the smart lock tool. Video records the user's app activity. Smart look tool, sorry. Their package doesn't support web. Adding some script on index.html works. Is this possible to access Hive in index.html? I mean, this is just a full-on question. There's several things going on here. So smart look must be some package. I've never heard of it, but I'm guessing it records the person's screen so you can support them and help them. And I'm guessing I'm not going to look into it right now. You're saying their package, I guess their pub package doesn't support web, but you can add some script on index.html. So their system supports web, but the pub package does not. And adding some script on index.html makes it work in web environments. So how do you access Hive or whatever your other Dart code is, I guess, from index.html? The answer is you don't. There you go. So briefly, what you need to do is you include your script tag with your external JavaScript library. This makes the web page or the website that hosts your Flutter code load that library. Okay, first step one. Step two is inside your Dart code, you use the JS package and JS interrupt package. There's Dart.js and the JS package on pub, and they give you the tools that you need to annotate classes in Dart as external, And if you annotate a class as external, then I'll see if I can bring this up here as an example. Bear with me. The one time here we go. I'll bring this up on stream. So this is the JS package as part of the Dart team, and you've also got the Dart JS package, which provides helpers to accessing things. This is the underlying stuff. You don't need to call this normally, but you may need to use JS object, JS array, something like this. Let me just hide the question for a second. And you'll see that you've got these two global functions are also used quite often, which is allow interrupt and allow interrupt capture this. So in briefly, allow interrupt means that you can actually take a Dart function and hand it to some like callback in JavaScript, and the JavaScript can call your Dart function. And then the allow interrupt to capture this is the same thing, but the this parameter gets passed to JavaScript. I think is the first argument, whatever. And you can look into it. It's a slightly different calling mechanism. There's also the JS util package, which again has those functions and has some other ways of calling and interrupting with JavaScript in a maybe slightly nicer way. But so this sort of under the hood, this uses the JS package to do a bunch of its stuff. But for the most part, unless you're really doing like real deep interrupt with JavaScript, you don't need these. The JS package would do the job for most of the time. And in here, you would just do this. You just do @JS on your library, and then @JS, whatever the interface is in JavaScript, and then you mark your whatever it is as external. This is a keyword you most probably haven't seen. And this has been around since day one. This is how you've always accessed JavaScript from Dart. This is the very beginning days. So example here of Google Maps, you say that this Dart file library maps is actually Google Maps in JavaScript. So this is about naming. And then there's in Google Maps, they define in the JavaScript API, they define a global google.maps.map to get the current map. So you can just mark that here, external map, get map. So there's a getter for map, which is this bit. And because it's in the library called Google Maps, it does this bit. So this is a way of you specifying Dart code that makes the JavaScript work, right? Or call the right JavaScript. And you can see here, here's a class for map. And you can say it's got external constructor and external location getter. And location is actually that long class or object, as it were, in JavaScript. And then here the parameters and so on and so forth. So you basically need to do this for your whatever library you're using in JavaScript is. And then that way you can just call this Dart code straight away from your Dart stuff, and then you're accessing the external package. So this way, so to come back to the question's point, how is it possible to access Hive? You access Hive like you would do normally in Dart code, and then you call your JavaScript interrupt to load the smart look library, JavaScript library, and make it work with whatever you're doing. So hopefully that helps, Peter. I'll pop the link to that JS package in. It can be painful, but that's the same with any of these things. When you're going across boundaries between like JavaScript and Dart, you're gonna like feel frustrated, right? But that's the same with all of these kind of things. When you're crossing these boundaries, right, you're having to do interrupt. It's not fun. What you can do is inside of your running Chrome, and in Chrome you've got the inspector, and that actually has a JavaScript debugger. And if you run that when you're doing your hot reloading and everything else, you can actually see what it's calling, and you can actually put a breakpoint in the JavaScript code, see it stop, and analyze what it's creating, how it's working, and that can help you debug what's going wrong with your interrupt.
What we call that in software is a name taken from electronics, electrical work called impedance mismatch.
Yes.
Where it doesn't exactly fit the exact same kinds of things, but it's kind of close, and we think we can put a shim in there to kind of get us across that hump. But it's from the old school radio frequency stuff and audio stuff, or impedance
transmission lines
between things. Yeah. So I love that term. I'm glad I get to bring it up again. Yeah.
And also I always like the name because it's like it impedes me. It's impeding me.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
That's why I always remember that. Yeah, good one.
Right.
Yeah. All right. But yes, the
old fogies talk about old language. Yes, here we go. I remember what I was doing. No.
But anyway, there's lots of information in that README page for JavaScript libraries. So the JS package, and that will hopefully help you find the right thing. The other one I would say is if you want some examples, I'd say go look at the Flutter plugins repository. So it's github.com/flutter/plugins. Go look at the web packages where they use this themselves, and you'll see how some examples of how it's being used.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, moving on. Chris Lee says, how to send context from stateful widget to a controller widget in Flutter.
Why does a widget need context?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a controller widget
Oh,
already
right.
has its own context. So, but I think you want the question really is, Chris, and I want you to follow up with this, Chris, in the chat if you're here, and that is, why do you want to send the context? So, I mean, how to send it is I can tell you that right now, but
Parameter.
yeah, I mean, like, so the way you do this is you can actually use context. So in your stateful widget, wherever it is further down the hierarchy, you can say context dot find widget of exact type, whatever the controller widget is, and it'll take you up the tree, or state of the controller, and then call a function on it and pass the context. That's as simple as it gets, right? And you can use provider and use an inherited widget and all sorts of other things, right? But the general gist is all you're doing is all it does find is it travels up the tree to all the parent references until it finds the one with the exact type that matches state or widget or whatever, and then you'll get the reference back and you call the function on it, right? That's kind of how that works. Now, the problem here is, why do you need that context? Why, for what purpose would you need the an inner context and an outer context? Not really what you probably want to do. Is it just to get like the render object, then pass the render object? So you do context.find render object and pass that. Or even better, pass a function. So if you're trying to call back something that's in this widget further down, pass a function from that widget to that parent, and then when that parent's ready, it can call that function. And again, this kind of rolls up the fact that the context remains within its context at its place where it's being used. If you start throwing context and storing them in variables, that's normally leads to bad things because the context is not always there because it has a life cycle. So,
I've also heard this question in the context. Oh my God, bad statement there. But relative to the idea of having we're hearing all sorts of ground rolling sounds.
That was me rolling. Sorry.
Rolling. Anyway, I've heard this in the context again. I said it of not being a controller widget, but just being a controller, data structure, trying to manage the flow of things, and all of a sudden you need context there. And I think I wonder if this is that question. I don't know. I don't know what controller widget belies it a bit.
But even that way, that kind of comes to that second point. You pass a function that does something, like a function that returns back your localization, and then the actual lookup of the localization on the context happens in that callback function that you've passed back, and it has some life cycle. You need to be able to unregister that when that widget goes away or something, right? Yeah. Hopefully that helps. But Chris, if you want to follow up, please post something. Next. Okay. Oh, no, that's what we had. So no, it's posted twice, I guess. Maybe they untick it. Maybe it's my fault. Randall, wait, what is this? Why didn't you look? Why are you talking about my appearances on Flying High with Flutter?
So yesterday, the long-running show Flying High with Flutter interviewed me about all sorts of Dart 3 stuff, and I just looked on their website, and unfortunately, it's not published yet. Although a short talking about it was published. I just put the URL for Flying High with Flutter. It's been almost a weekly, I think, podcast, video cast on for about 2 or 3 years. They interviewed me about a year and a half ago, and it was a wonderful interview. But I got to come back on and talk a lot about Dart 3. I think it ran over I think it's like an hour and a half, we were only planning on an hour. But you want to check that out. And I just want to make sure that got plugged on this show because I want to send everybody from here over there to go watch me talk for another hour and a half on really cool things like Dart 3 and a little bit about my history again, because we talked about my history a lot on the previous show as well. So check that out. There we go.
What we really need is we need somebody to follow Randall into the karaoke bar with and put that video on.
Yeah. That's dangerous. Yes. Although if you Google Randall Schwartz karaoke. You will find videos of me on YouTube and Vimeo. So yes, I've got some public presence there.
Maybe we can include that in our coding project, Simon. We can have an app that plays videos of Randall karaoke.
Oh yeah,
John,
right. Okay.
For the interview question.
Yes.
Did I miss? Is that upcoming?
It's the next question.
Oh, it's the next question. That's great.
Yeah. So how do I crack data structure interview sessions for Flutter developer jobs? Like what database and data structures should you have knowledge of? So I would recommend this book from our friends over at, it was Ray Wenderlich. Now it's Codeco, but they have this nice book that has everything you want to know about data structures and algorithms in it. So that's a good read.
Actual physical real book. Wow.
I have the actual physical version of the book. Yes.
So I it's kind of interesting. So when do you first? I'm just trying to take a step back here about data structures, right? Because you do OOP, you do object-oriented programming, OOP, and just OO in general, and that's great. So you understand the relationship between classes and calling methods and all this kind of terminology, and fine. But data structures is a slight, it's interesting, right? Because data structures have many different use cases. It's not necessarily the classes and how they work. Data structures is more like, you think of it like graphs and graph trees and various ways of accessing data, linked lists and various other things like that. That kind of how you manipulate that data structure. Yep. Did you hear the news recently that Google's DeepMind found a better way of sorting data that's faster than any other method found before?
Oh, I did not hear that.
Their AI, they were asking the AI to, they gave it the knowledge of assembler, and they asked it to produce a piece of assembly code that would sort this thing faster than any other, and they did the reinforcement learning and all the rest of it, and it worked out a way that no one had come up with before ever.
Wow. Huh.
And I just thought that was really crazy. How, see if I can find that article on it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I welcome our AI overlords. If they're listening to this show, we welcome you. Come in peace, please.
I'm in the midst of a reorg that is moving me into a role focused on AI. So
here we go. I found it. Here you go. Alpha Dev discovers faster sorting algorithms. June 7th, 2023. So this is the main article about it, and sorting out. There's a sorting algorithm.
Throw that link in the chat.
So I will throw this link.
Take a look at that.
So everyone can go to this themselves.
Definitely will look at that.
So there's some images in here and how they did it all and how it works and all the rest of it. But so there's this. I just thought it was kind of interesting that they got AI to kind of teach us. There's also a really great article from Justine. This is a blog right now, and she goes through and explains the inner workings. If you like assembler or machine code, want to know a bit more about that and how it all works, then there's a fun thing for you. But to go read a really great in-depth article. On the side. Sorry, this didn't.
So data structures. From the database side, I guess there's options, right? I mean, it's understanding the basics and then maybe picking out some of the big ones, right? So ISAR and SQL Lite.
I mean, databases are fine. I mean, that's not really algorithms or data structures. Right. I think maybe this is more an OOP thing. So maybe it's more learning about object-oriented programming in general, different patterns and things like that. There's actually design patterns as a common concept, and design patterns. I said this the other day. I was talking to someone like you don't need to learn design patterns per se. Like you don't go around and go, I'm gonna. To be honest, I don't think I've ever said, I'm gonna use the
producer.
I mean.
I think this gets back to the problem that people have sometimes understanding that programming is a craft. There is the science of it. You learn the patterns, you learn the structures, you learn object-oriented programming, but there's also the art. And to learn the art, you first start by copying or studying good artists, and then you develop your own that's similar so that you can develop your style. So you got to have both the science and the art. And some of the questions people asked to be prepared are only about the science, but that's not what's going to get you real jobs. And it's not what's going to fulfill your life while you're actually doing those real jobs. Learn the art. Learn the art of what programming is. It's a craft.
Yep.
There is also to that slight to that point. Back to the sorry, I was talking about design patterns, and you are right there. Sorry, Ren, I'm just wasn't distracted from that. I just carry on with what I was saying. The design patterns piece. I always find myself, if I'm talking to someone about something, you need a way of describing how these objects interact together. So you say, "Oh, it's using the visitor pattern," and because you both know what the visitor pattern is, you can both understand what you're talking about.
Yep.
It doesn't have to follow the exacting standard of this thing that's been declared, right? But the point here is that it's just about terminology. So you don't say, "Oh, I'm using an object that goes down the tree that keeps its local state that references a hierarchical list of other objects." Like this, you don't describe it. You say, "I'm using the visitor pattern," right? Because that's what that is, right? So I think when you hear about terminology, it's like any industry terminology that you see, people start using phrases and acronyms and all sorts in any industry because everyone's on the same wavelength.
Jargon.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
You learn the jargon of the language. Yes.
And that's it. And I was going to say to that point, I wouldn't recommend for any newbies to get this book because it's quite old. There's modern versions of this. This book is the Design Patterns, the Gang of Four book, which is why it's known. And that's because these four data scientists, I think I worked at Harvard at the time. I think it's something. They came up with this, the roots of object-oriented programming and all these sort of design patterns. Yeah. But what they did was just document the patterns that were being used, right? Yeah. And don't get me wrong, they came up with some of their own, and it's all great and wonderful, right? So they've actually categorized. So in the cover here, you won't see this, but creational patterns, abstract, factory, builder. Was here builders use the term quite often. Method, factory, prototype, singleton. Singleton's another one that you've probably heard of. Structural patterns, behavioral patterns, and then they actually do a nice little thing on the back here and do diagrams about how all the patterns join together, and then they actually also have all the diagrams of each of the patterns and how they work. But the problem here is this book was, where was it authored? I think it was 1970 something.
A while ago, yeah.
And the problem is the terminology that they use is not modern vernacular. 1977. So the terminology that's used in here for how you communicate from one class to another is message, right? You don't use the term message in modern vernacular in programming, right? That's it. Head first design patterns. That's the one. Thank you, D8. So that's literally the one I was thinking of. I don't have a copy of it. So that one is like the modern version of this. So that's the one I would recommend. But again, yeah, it's about learning the what's the word? The vernacular. Yeah, I think that's the thing. But what happens is the more you use these patterns, the more you understand the patterns, and the more what happens is they just come to you. I'm going to do this. You don't think I'm going to do, I can't even think of a particular pattern now. The observer pattern, the memento, the mediator, the interpreter, command, whatever these things are, right? Like you don't, you just do it, right?
It's also that they're structural and they're more. In my experience, I've been treating anytime people mention those as not a dogma or a prescription, but rather a suggestion of the kinds of things I can expect in their algorithm. Or in reverse, when I'm describing my algorithms, I might use one of those terms, but only loosely. They're basically just a hint of something in the right direction. They aren't necessarily, literally put these kind of variables with these names in them. And I hate when people get this as a dogma and forget that they're just suggestions.
Right. Anyway, so coming back to that question, we'll carry on with this just for a second, and just say, I'd say the other things to look at is where, if you want to crack data structures, is to understand where they're being used in current software. So a nice thing that then that's from my viewpoint. So I self-learned a lot of this stuff, and I learned a lot about data structures from understanding how what file formats are and how files are being read by software and things like that. So go look at the standards for JPEG, PNG, understand their structures, and you can understand. And normally, if you read up about these things, you'll see like you probably have some blog post somewhere of someone saying explain why they chose to do things a certain way, and that can kind of inform your opinion about how these things work.
I think also, if you're applying for a Dart area job, a job that involves Dart or a Dart-like language, spend some time really understanding why a list, why a map, why a set. Learn those three and really understand them. Like when I first started with Dart, I knew lots of other ways to use those kinds of structures, but I didn't know the specific protocol that Dart provides on those. So at least every few days, I would just go to the top level list and map and set pages and just go down and say, what methods can I call on a set? And that gets it in your brain so that that's like learning how your hammer works. It's very important to understand how the hammer is used and when to use a hammer and not a screwdriver. And so to understand list, map, and set will get you 90% of the data structures you ever need.
There's spend time looking at the API docs.
Yeah.
Go look at what inherits what implements what. Just browse. I think the best advice I'd say to like learning Flutter and Dart as well is just spend some time, set aside a certain amount of time a week and put some hour slots in your diary and say, I'm just going to spend an hour, maybe 2 hours, looking through the API docs, reading up the material, clicking on things, following my nose like Wikipedia, and trying to understand what this is all about. And eventually things will start clicking and things will start thinking, oh, that thing is that because of that. And that's because of this. And before you know it, things will come together. Right?
Yeah.
You only learn it by using it. And the problem is you can't use everything in the SDK until you've done it for a lot, right? And you've needed a reason to use all those things. So, but knowing what's available, so you know what choices are there for you is the key. And yeah, like I showed with that restorable stuff, a lot of people don't use it. Therefore, it's a very unknown thing, right? But when you need it, you need it. So knowing it's there is the key. Once you know it's there, you know where you can go, what it's named and what it's called. You can go looking for it when you need it.
Right. It's like I also, early in my Flutter experiences, I spent some time walking through the layout pages over and over again, just to kind of know what I had available to me. In a column and row, obviously, everybody teaches that in the first 3 pages of layout. But some of the other ones are actually quite clever. Unconstrained box and multi-child layout things. There's some clever stuff in there, but people don't tend to notice that there's other things that solve problems. Layout in particular seems to be something that's troubling for a lot of people. So go check it out.
Yeah, I mean, it surprises me how many people don't use custom scroll view. I mean, when you need to do, especially when you're trying to do custom scrolling things, so many people don't use the custom scroll view widget with slivers. It doesn't mean you have to build your own slivers. That is a really complicated task. I do not recommend it, right? However, it doesn't mean you can't use custom scroll view and then use sliver to box adapter, which means you can put any box widget, any of your normal widgets you normally use in a scroll view. Literally what it's there for. And then you can start using the other widgets that start with the word sliver padding and sliver grid view and sliver lists, and combine and make these really nice scrolling experiences that avoid the scroll stuff.
I really wish they had named it in reverse, because sliver to box sounds to me like I'm taking a sliver and turning it into a box, but I'm not. I'm taking a box and turning it into a sliver. That's backwards.
They actually have.
It's backwards.
Yeah. In fact, you say that right, but actually, it is actually He's definitely backwards. The
I've always been irritated by the name of that function.
I'm trying to find it now. Actually,
it's just random as I can. While you're trying to find it, I'm still ranting. Yeah, it's named backwards. It is.
So when actually, I'm going to see if I can. Pretty much, it was like a search results page on the SDK. It would be really helpful.
Sure.
We just have the drop down. So I'm going to see if I make it bigger and see if they come up bigger.
Oh, whoa.
I'm going to need it really big here. Adapter. You actually find, look, sliver to box, widget to render box adapter. Render. What was it? There's more. There's more. I know there's more.
163 results. Wow.
Sliver. So look, you got sliver to box adapter, sliver multi-box adapter widget. Each of these things has a element and a render object as well.
And some are adapter ER and some were adapter OR.
Oh no!
Really?
Yeah, that's why you weren't finding them.
Great, just
really?
Great.
Yeah, so see those.
Oh yeah, I see it. Oh no!
I think we need to raise a concern with them.
so go back, take the OR off.
No, I know. I'm not looking at them going.
And now you've got widget to render box adapter with an E, so you could tell who created them because they're similar naming.
I'm going to do a pull request for something that ends in IR just to really mess them up.
Oh god.
Adapter.
Adapter. Yeah.
I do want to. Hopefully, people are looking at this. So just talking about this. You will see the key thing to look at when you're looking at this SDK is implementers. If you're looking at the inner workings, because you'll see here, sliver grid, sliver list, sliver prototype. All these four implement this underlying protocol. If you go to sliver list, when it loads, of course. I don't know why it always seems to be so slow when I'm on the stream and never any other time. But yeah, custom view, scroll view slivers explains it, and then you'll find lots of documentation information. And then from this,
if we had time to do live coding, you could actually start playing with some of those.
Do we want to do
we're at the top of the hour? Right. We're at top of the hour already.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to jump.
Yeah, we should.
One last question: Flutter developers are front end engineers or mobile app developers?
Yes.
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 Is the answer. All of the above, and back end engineers and desktop engineers. Because it's multi-platform on everything, and you can do it on the server, and you can use it on the server. You're an engineer on everything.
Yes.
And we're both engineers and engineers. The engineers are the better guys. So the engineers and the engineers.
Oh God,
and the engineers.
So yeah. Anyway, hopefully that helps.
Milking
is anyone actually interested in some live coding? Do we want to do anything? Let me get some opinions in the chat. Otherwise, we'll end the stream here.
I didn't see anything.
We'll finally do a 2-hour show for.
I think Joe, should we end it here? Let's end it here. And what I'm going to do is put an open question out there. Tweet with hashtag Humpday Q&A, and I will bring the hashtag up on the screen here somewhere. Hang on, I have it somewhere. I want people to tweet with that hashtag, and we'll take a look next stream. And if you've got some questions, or you've got
coding suggestions about what you want to see coded, or how do I do this, or how would I approach this problem, or whatever, we will see if we can live code it. And then we'll pick one or two things if they're small or whatever. We'll work it out, and we'll aim to finish questions in the first hour, and then the second hour we'll do some coding, and that's it. We end at 2 hours because we can't do streams get too long otherwise.
Nobody watches.
Great to have you here. We had to pull the stopper and pull the band-aid off quickly.
I'm just pulling the reins in a little bit. That's all right.
That's good. It's good because
I'm trying.
All right,
and I'm going to submit an issue. Is it ER or OR? Can you make
I think you should submit an issue about this, and also a PR that renames them all. And see if we can get done.
Talk about a breaking change.
Yeah, but the point is, most of those things are not actually being used that regularly. Like, And if they
Yeah.
are, a simple deprecation warning with the, to use the renamed one,
Yeah.
Right.
super simple, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Deprecated. We spelled this correctly next year.
I can't believe that. I just, you know what? I didn't even notice that before now.
I hadn't either until you were pulling up the list and I saw it. And I'm like, wait a minute. Some of them, they're ending in ER and some in OR.
Is that
obviously different devs?
Yeah, but is adaptor? Is that are they actually spelling?
They're
that
both words. They're both English words. Yes,
They are.
Yeah, but are they like?
They have some nuances. Like adapter is kind of a thingy, and an adapt.
Oh no!
No,
Are you gonna?
no, they're the same.
They're the same.
I can't distinguish them. Oh.
Well, that's it. No, they just need to be made the same. Sorry, that doesn't.
Well, according to ChatGPT, they are correct spellings of the same word.
Wow.
No.
that's ChatGPT hallucinating again. Yes,
I'm
not even
disagreeing.
close. I gotta ask Bard. Bard will know.
Oh yeah,
man.
of course.
Okay. Yeah. At least they all spell sliver the right way.
Yeah.
That would be weird if it was like
color. They
give me
didn't insert that extra letter in the word color either. So
yeah, I'm going to tell you something else. A lot of the sliver widgets. So by convention, child. Then we have a child. It's the next thing in the hierarchy. In the slivers, it's supposed to be the word sliver. That way, it only accepts a sliver type of render object and not a render box, right? So you've got the choice between the two. But that wasn't always the case. It was actually child for everything at one point, and it was so confusing. So they made the choice to make that change. And again, no one, I think, again, for me, move the framework and the language on, right? Boohoo, you have to refactor some of your code, right? But at the end of the day, it's the benefit of everyone for the longer term.
Yeah.
And I don't want to point fingers at a company that's has initials MS, right? But backwards compatibility can be a bane. It can really be a bane, and you'll be living with backwards compatibility for what 40
for a
years?
long time. Yeah.
So yeah, don't and especially when that software is hardly used, right? Like there's a point where you have to say, you need to re-release, you need to update, right?
Yeah.
Keeps us all in a job as well.
I think sliver should end in IR though, really. So I think I should submit that as part of the pull request. Yes.
There's definitely. I think what we're missing in I actually have a request for a widget that I need to I've been meaning to put together, which is a sliver column.
Okay.
What we don't actually have, which you think is the same as a sliver list, but it's not. But my point is, you cannot put multiple slivers inside any other multiple slivers. But we should, and there's no reason why we couldn't.
Yeah.
We couldn't have that. It's really, it means working with slivers becomes that bit more harder right now, and we're missing that widget. Anyway,
all right.
I was going to keep talking. Thank you, John, so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, and it's great chatting with everyone. And how many hours?
Go watch
166
to go.
166.
And go check out my Flutter Forward appearance and talk about it next week, please.
Yeah,
that'll be fun. And I'll be back.
Flying high with Flutter. Yeah. All right. See you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.